The New York Knicks select Kristaps Porzingis.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
What the fuck did they do? Who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is Tingus Pingus? On my vacation, blissfully happy until tonight when this happened. Ruined everything. Just ruined.
It sounds like you're saying Luka will not be like a perennial all-star type player, but if he's the athleticism, that's a problem. The lack of athleticism.
Yeah, it doesn't have it. His feet is slower than rush hour traffic.
Wrapped around a beefy burrito. The new quesadilla from Taco Bell.
But come on, man. Listen, I understand that this big tub of lard that can't jump onto a curb.
He's looking for Davis.
Got it back, left-hand slider! And Green scores and a foul. What a pass by Jokic.
For Finney Smith, it's a loose ball, and Luka picks it up! Some Luka magic! Ain't nobody in this game who's got a knack for doing stuff like that!
Pulls out, Porzingis takes it, throws it down!
Slow, unathletic, pudgy, fat, soft, inexperienced, don't know how their game will translate. I'm sure you've heard all these tired stereotypes commonly used to describe and discredit European NBA players or prospects before, but one thing's for sure, you're certainly hearing less and less of them nowadays than, say, 10 years ago. The rhetoric on European stars in the NBA is shifting rapidly right before our very eyes, as guys like Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, and many more have spearheaded a stylistic revolution in the association and begun to completely redefine how the game is played to its core. When it comes to this revolution, the accolades simply speak for themselves. 4 of the last 5 MVPs, European. The most recent Finals MVP and consensus best player in the world, European. The number 1 pick in the most recent NBA draft, European. This past season, we had 9 guys of international descent playing in the All-Star game, a sharp increase from 6 the year prior. It's been clear that Europeans are here to stay in the NBA for a long time, but with the way things are progressing, they might just start taking over the NBA sooner rather than later. But things weren't always this way. For the longest time, and sometimes even today, European and American players are just assessed on a different level with different sets of expectations. The way we evaluated European talent here in America has done a complete 180 in recent years due to the emergence of stars like Jokic. But to illustrate to you just how primitive things were less than 10 years ago, here are some pre-draft scouting reports from the American media on the Joker himself, Luka Doncic, and Kristaps Porzingis. Jokic, prior to being drafted in the middle of a Taco Bell ad, was labeled an average athlete lacking great speed. They said he may struggle staying with NBA starters. He lacks quickness, and his upside may be limited by his lack of explosiveness. He was even projected to be a poor man's Boris Diaw by some. I'm not kidding. Despite being one of the most accomplished prospects ever at just 19 years old, winning just about every trophy imaginable with a well-respected club in Real Madrid, Luka was labeled a marginally average athlete by NBA standards. Athletic ability has come into question. He was blasted by the media for having quote-unquote slow feet, below average foot speed, and an overall lack of athleticism that would hinder his ability to both score and defend at the highest level. Porzingis was called uncoordinated and unathletic, and it was speculated by the media that he would never have an NBA caliber body, and that would ruin his chances at becoming a star. Scouts refused to use the words potential and ceiling when evaluating him because international players might not be as proven as freshmen in college, guys that are 18 years old. There is a glaring similarity between these 3 scouting reports, as due to ridiculous misconceptions about the difference between the American and European games, they all attempt to poke holes in the player's speed, athleticism, and ability to defend. As you can clearly see, European players have come quite a long way in quite a short amount of time, with Victor Wembanyama recently selected number 1 overall, and largely being hailed as one of the most complete NBA draft prospects of all time. So how on earth did we get from point A to point B? What misconceptions do we continue to get wrong about players from across the pond? Why are European stars now taking over the world's premier basketball league? Let's break it down from the beginning to find all that out and more. Although European players have played a respectable role in the NBA dating back to the 1940s, the game of basketball changed forever in 1989 when FIBA rules changed, allowing NBA players to compete for their countries at the Olympic Games. Although the American Dream Team thoroughly outclassed every other nation talent-wise, this monumental shift allowed American fans to witness a new foreign style of basketball for the first time, enabling a whole new wave of players to make their way across the Atlantic and into the NBA. This movement was spearheaded by the Green Card Five, a group of players that began the process of merging two starkly different styles of basketball. The group included notable names such as Drazen Petrovic, Alexander Volkov, and Vlade Divac, guys that may be footnotes in NBA history to the average fan, but all played monumental roles in helping shape the style of basketball played today, thus paving the way for players like Dirk, Luka, Giannis, Jokic, and plenty of others. So what on earth is this revolutionary style that was brought over from Europe that went on to breed a whole new era of superstars? Why is European talent becoming increasingly successful in the NBA as the years go by? Why are NBA draft classes becoming overwhelmed with young European talent and hard to pronounce names? Where does the American system fail and this European system succeed that would prompt a whole new future of European stars? In short, it's something as simple as prioritizing and emphasizing different aspects of the game. Let me explain. It's no secret that they play a different brand of basketball over in Europe, and the most glaring difference between continents is how offense is initiated and spacing is generated. NBA, college, and high school basketball here in the States all often rely on the individual to create these things with a combination of technical skill and athleticism. In Europe, teams put the task of creating space and open looks on the shoulders of all 5 guys on the court, prompting them to work together as one cohesive unit in order to see any kind of success. After this video is done, go ahead and pull up any highlights from any of the EuroLeague's top teams. Barcelona, Olympiacos, Real Madrid, Monaco, and just watch how pretty much everyone on the court never stops moving and the ball zips around the perimeter at lightning speed. This is typically done through a 5-out look and a ridiculous amount of high ball screening and subsequent cutting in an offense that has come to be known as ball screen continuity, which I'm absolutely going to discuss at length in a future video. A huge part of this style is what Greg Popovich has popularized here in America as the 0.5 rule, which essentially states a player has to make a decisive move within a half second of receiving the ball and then again within a half second of getting rid of the ball. What this offensive style does is it forces all 5 players on the court to become multifaceted on the offensive end and possess a guard-like skill set no matter their size or athleticism. Every man on the court is expected to be able to stick an open 3 or nail a pinpoint pass at any given moment, which has created a truly positionless offense and led to players with the skill set of Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama becoming more and more common. In American media, we constantly talk about how the NBA is shifting towards a largely positionless league, and we're beginning to see the All-Star and All-NBA teams not use positions. Many fans are unaware that we have Europe to thank for that. But things don't just stop on the offensive end. With the high-octane pace of play continuing to sweep through Europe, team speed and communication on defense needs to be at a ridiculous level in order to keep up. With the way that basketball leagues are structured across the pond, kids are fed into this rigorous system we just talked about as young as possible through academies, as guys like Luka have made their professional debuts as young as 16 years old. I'm not joking. This kid was 16 playing against guys in their 20s and 30s, some of which have had or have gone on to have solid NBA careers. Not to mention the overwhelming majority of European players that later transition to the NBA spend their whole lives with the same club and same group of teammates. This creates a level of camaraderie and chemistry necessary to facilitate a style of basketball that constantly relies on well-timed cuts, quick passes, and constant communication. Not only that, but it creates incredibly deep-seated rivalries and a level of competition that just doesn't exist in the American youth game. Don't believe me? Here's Luka responding to whether he'd rather win an NBA title or a gold medal with his home country of Slovenia.
Luka, what would mean more to you? A gold medal with the team Slovenia or an NBA championship with the man?
I would say gold medal with Slovenia. You play for your country, and that's something that really but I wouldn't mind both.
So to sum it all up, the European developmental system is essentially players spending years upon years in a system that forces them to develop every skill under the sun, while also doing so playing against grown men and former NBA players as teenagers. From the outside looking in, it's no secret how they put so many freaks in the league on a yearly basis. So now you may be thinking, this system of development sounds great, but how does it prove that European players are about to take over the NBA? Well, it doesn't on its own, but when put in contrast with the most common developmental paths American players take, you can definitely start to see how things have made such a turn in Europe's favor. Now, I don't think I'm going to surprise many of you or ruffle any feathers when I say that the American AAU basketball system is a broken, exploitative mess designed solely to generate as much profit as possible at the expense of player development. I'm going to avoid talking about how AAU ball is just a big money pit, as nearly every other YouTuber has already discussed this at length, and I want to keep this conversation constrained to looking at things from a pure basketball standpoint. And from there, the current system just flat out doesn't promote good basketball, and I'm going to try and explain how that is quite the contrary to the European developmental style. For starters, one of the many things I just praised the European circuit for was its focus on building teams through chemistry and coaching, while the American AAU system gets this all wrong. Here in the States, players will often abandon their high school teams to play AAU and travel ball, as it puts them in front of the eyes of more coaches and scouts. To take this notion a step further, it's also not common for highly skilled players to switch between AAU teams on a weekly basis, jumping to whatever program can provide them the biggest stage. In one system, you have guys working together since their youth to accomplish a common goal, while in the other, you have guys skipping around the country so fast they probably can't even remember their teammates' names. This has subsequently bled into the college game, as transferring from school to school is now the most popular route taken by players when the slightest thing doesn't go their way. On top of the fact that fewer players are finishing their education and leaving college after a year or two than ever before. Over the years, this culture of selfishness has also permeated into the very way the game is played, as social media and highlight culture have led players to realizing the quickest way to get attention from big-time teams is to get on Ball is Life or SportsCenter next with an electric highlight dunk or ridiculous individual stat line. The current climate of youth basketball in America no longer puts an emphasis on defense, teamwork, or even winning, as we've glamorized all the wrong aspects of the game. Austin Rivers sums up this phenomenon of the impact of social media on the AAU circuit pretty well in this short clip, so I'll just let him speak his truth.
The landscape has changed now. Parents are paying these people to come to games. Everyone gets a mixtape. Everyone looks at the camera now and taps on their head when they dunk on someone, and it's all highlight after highlight after highlight, and now only kids watch highlights. They don't watch the actual basketball game, the purity of the game. You know, making a hockey pass, which means making the right pass. Even though you're not going to get an assist, you're driving to make a play so someone else can make the play to get an assist. You know, diving on the floor, talking on defense, playing defense at all, shooting good shots, making the game easy, being efficient with basketball, and scoring off 1 or 2 dribbles rather than 15 dribbles. This whole thing, and I only named like 12. There's 50 of them, has been forgotten about in basketball. And you're seeing it with some of these guys that come to the NBA. And I can name you names, but I'm not going to. That come into the NBA and have all the talent in the world, but like they need to be taught basketball because like this is what basketball is now.
The 2020s have seen the rise of a toxic new era of basketball culture in America, as one can actually argue that an overwhelming majority of young players don't even need to worry about winning to succeed anymore. Seriously, if you look up the schedule of the most high-level AAU teams at this point in the year, they're sometimes playing 4 to 5 games a day on the weekends and multiple tournaments with multiple different championships per week. So Peach Jam just went down a few weeks back, which is essentially a showcase of all the top AAU talent in the country. LeBron was in attendance, the games were televised, and social media was blowing up with content from the event. Now, I want you to take a minute and think about the type of content you saw on your timeline during this tournament. The overwhelming majority of it was individual stat lines with some highlight reel dunks, blocks, and crossovers mixed in there. Now, that's all well and good, but it's a problem when I see all that content, but can count on one hand the amount of times I saw the final score of a game posted. From that standpoint alone, it's abundantly clear where the emphasis is being placed by these players, coaches, and the media. And no, I'm not bashing Peach Jam or any specific tournaments here, because they're just the symptom of a greater problem. That problem being that here in America, we've cultivated this culture that has young, prospective players romanticizing all the wrong aspects of the game in order for the media machine to exploit them for clicks and revenue. When you truly start to consider these things, you begin to ponder less and less about how the European foothold in the NBA is becoming stronger and stronger with each passing year. That notion then makes you wonder, how long can this possibly continue for, and just how long will it be before these guys completely take over the league if something isn't done?